There are few phrases more deceptive in relationships than this one. Nothing is wrong. It sounds reassuring. It sounds mature. It sounds like peace. But often, it is not peace at all. It is the surface language of avoidance. Most relationships do not break down because of constant conflict. They erode because important things stop being named. And when naming feels risky, silence becomes strategy. Nothing is wrong is rarely a statement of truth. It is usually a statement of fatigue. Fatigue from trying to explain. Fatigue from not being understood. Fatigue from conversations that feel costly and unproductive. So people simplify. They stop reaching for depth. They stop expecting change. They stop bringing certain parts of themselves into the relationship. Outwardly, things stabilize. Schedules continue. Responsibilities are handled. But inwardly, something essential has been set aside. This is how avoidance begins, not as neglect, but as self-preservation. Most people do not avoid because they don't care. They avoid because caring has begun to feel unsafe. Unsafe to express. Unsafe to explore. Unsafe to carry openly. So when asked what's wrong, they say nothing is. Not because nothing exists, but because something exists that feels too complicated to touch. Avoidance often wears the clothing of wisdom. It says, let's not overthink this. It says, it's not that serious. It says, I don't want to make it a big deal. And sometimes restraint is wise. But chronic restraint becomes emotional absence. The difference is subtle but consequential. Wisdom creates space for future connection. Avoidance slowly removes it. This is why many couples describe their relationship as calm but distant, functional but flat, stable but disconnected. There are no major fights, no obvious betrayals, just a quiet sense that something meaningful is missing. Faith communities sometimes reinforce this pattern unintentionally. Endurance is praised. Sacrifice is honored. Peace is emphasized. But peace that requires emotional silence is not peace. It is suppression. Scripture speaks of peace as wholeness, not quietness. Wholeness includes truth. It includes naming what is present, not pretending it isn't. Avoidance thrives when truth feels inconvenient. When honesty threatens stability. When vulnerability threatens control. So people choose predictability over presence. Predictability feels safe. Presence feels risky. Presence asks for response. Predictability requires only routine. Over time, routines replace relationship. People become efficient partners instead of engaged companions. They know how to manage logistics together, but not how to tend emotional life. This is why nothing is wrong can feel heavy. Because the body often knows what the mouth refuses to say. Tension shows up in tone, in timing, in what is no longer shared. The absence of conflict does not mean the presence of connection. Connection requires responsiveness. When responsiveness declines, avoidance fills the gap. Avoidance also protects identity. Naming a problem might require admitting disappointment, or unmet expectations, or personal responsibility. That kind of honesty can feel threatening to self-image. So people choose silence instead. Silence allows them to feel reasonable, patient, spiritual. But silence also keeps growth suspended. Faith does not call us to deny what is real. It calls us to walk in truth. Truth is not accusation. It is clarity. And clarity disrupts avoidance. Avoidance is reinforced when it works. When silence prevents arguments. When distance prevents discomfort. When nothing visibly breaks. But what is preserved outwardly is often eroding inwardly. This is why avoidance is so dangerous. It does not announce itself as harm. It announces itself as calm. Calm without connection is not peace. It is disconnection that hasn't yet named itself. Many people wait for a breaking point before they speak. They believe things must become unbearable before they are worth addressing. But by the time pain becomes loud, repair becomes harder. Avoidance delays healing until resentment has already formed. Resentment is not anger expressed. It is anger stored. Stored anger does not soften with time. It hardens. And when it finally surfaces, it often surprises both people. They say, "I didn't know it was that serious." But it was serious long before it was spoken. Avoidance also distorts perception. When things are not named together, people narrate alone. They tell themselves stories about motives, about indifference, about intent. These stories rarely favor the relationship. Distance grows not from what happened, but from what was never clarified. Faith invites us to light, not shadow. Not exposure for humiliation, but illumination for growth. Light reveals patterns without condemning people. Avoidance resists light because light requires response. And response requires courage. Courage is not loud confrontation. It is steady presence. It is the willingness to say, "This matters to me, even if it's uncomfortable." Avoidance says, "I can live with this." But living with something is not the same as living fully. The work between two people begins where avoidance ends. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but intentionally. It begins with noticing where silence has replaced curiosity, where "it's fine" has replaced honesty, where peace has been prioritized over presence. This does not mean every discomfort must be spoken immediately. Discernment still matters. But discernment is not perpetual delay. Faith forms people who can speak truth with humility, not people who disappear emotionally for the sake of quiet. Avoidance asks, "How do we keep things from getting worse?" Formation asks, "How do we grow truer?" Those are very different questions. If "nothing is wrong" has become a frequent phrase in your relationship, it may be worth asking what it is protecting. Is it protecting peace or predictability? Is it protecting love or comfort? Is it protecting the relationship or the status quo? Because relationships do not drift toward depth on their own. Depth is chosen, maintained, revisited. Avoidance feels easier in the moment, but it is costly over time. The cost is intimacy. The cost is aliveness. The cost is being known. And being known is not a luxury in relationships. It is the foundation. Before you move on, sit with these questions. Where have you said, "Nothing is wrong," when something actually mattered? What felt too risky to name at the time? And if faith calls us to walk in truth rather than quiet, what small honesty might be waiting for your courage?